There's actually multiple ways to set up this clinical grade hearing aid feature, so try not to get as confused as I did. Hey guys, Cliff Olson, Doctor of Audiology and founder of Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona, and in this video, I'm walking you through a step-by-step tutorial of how to set up your AirPods Pro 3 as clinical grade hearing aids. Now you may remember that back in October of 2024, Apple added a new clinical grade hearing aid feature and hearing protection feature with their update to iOS 18.1. This was originally for the AirPods Pro 2, but it's been carried forward to the new AirPods Pro 3. Of course, I have additional videos showing you how to set up the AirPods Pro 3 as hearing protection, as well as a detailed review video of that hearing protection feature, and I have a review video of how these actually work as clinical grade over-the-counter hearing aids. I will link all of those videos down in the description for you, but I want to focus specifically on a tutorial of how to actually set these things up because it's not as easy as you may think. Now, just to be clear, this clinical grade hearing aid feature is actually to turn the AirPods Pro 3 into over-the-counter hearing aids that is for adults with perceived mild to moderate hearing loss. If you have anything more than a moderate level hearing loss, these will not work for you as hearing aids. But assuming you do fall into this mild to moderate range of hearing loss, the AirPods Pro 3 could be a suitable option for you to get a little bit better hearing. I'll also say that this hearing aid feature does enhance streamed audio as well if you want it to. Now, before I get into this full detailed tutorial, do me a huge favor and click the like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on, go ahead and do that as well. It's greatly appreciated. And let me know in the comment section what you think about this AirPods Pro 3 clinical grade hearing aid feature once you've had a chance to set it up. If you end up running into some issues setting up the AirPods Pro 3 as hearing aids and you need some professional help, check out my website hearingup.com and find a HearingUp Network member in your area. These HearingUp members are also capable of identifying if your AirPods Pro 3 are actually going to provide you with hearing benefit. Alright, so first things first, you need to make sure that you have the right hardware. Of course, you already have the AirPods Pro 3, presumably, but you need to make sure that you have an Apple device, either an iPhone or an iPad. How new do they need to be? Well, they need to be new enough that you can run iOS or iPadOS 18.1 or newer. As of the time of this tutorial video, Apple has just released iOS 26.0.1. Now, if you're not sure which iOS that you have or which iOS you're capable of upgrading to, you can simply find that out by going to the settings of your phone. I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to do that. So if we go down here to the settings gear wheel, and then we scroll down to general, there it is. And then when we're in general, we can see here software update, and you can see that my phone has been updated to the newest iOS because it is not prompting me to update it. If you're not at least running iOS 18.1, you're gonna have to go ahead and install that. Keep in mind, this can take up to an hour. But once you have your iOS updated, you're then ready to actually pair the AirPods Pro 3 to your device. Now, the cool thing about the AirPods Pro 3 is that as soon as you open them up, assuming that they have battery, you're gonna see them come up as an option on the screen here to connect. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on connect. And then what it wants me to do is do a double tap on the front of the case. So I just wanna point out here, if you're used to some of the older cases, you had a push button on the back here to actually do the pairing. You do not have that inside of the new AirPods Pro 3. So I'm gonna close the lid, I'm gonna open it again, and then I'm going to double tap the front so that light flashes. Once you do that, it pairs almost instantly here, and now we can see that we have the pairing running. It's gonna ask me if I wanna use my head movements for the controls. I'm gonna do not now on that, and then track a workout with heart rate. I think that's pretty cool. I'm just gonna hit continue on that. Now, if by chance you're running the proper firmware of the AirPods Pro 3, which I bet that you're not, it may prompt you to actually take the hearing test right off the bat here. But in most cases, you do not have the proper firmware. So in this particular instance, for the tutorial, I'm gonna click on Not Now, even though if it does show up to where you can take the hearing test, you might as well just go ahead and do it. All right, now that you have the AirPods Pro 3 actually paired up with your iPhone, you can go down here to either click on AirPods Pro 3 or you can go down to Bluetooth. If I tap on Bluetooth, we can see that we have the AirPods Pro 3 connected. I can click on that blue eye icon right there, or I can just click on the AirPods Pro 3 button on that settings screen. Now you can see that I'm inside of the AirPods Pro 3 settings. Now if you look on this screen and you do not see hearing health, hearing protection, hearing assistance, and take a hearing test, then you are not running the proper firmware inside of the AirPods themselves. Now, this is not a quick process either because you actually need to update the firmware. The way that you do this in order to gain access to this hearing aid feature is to plug in your phone, plug in your AirPods, close the lid, and just let them sit there. They basically decide when they want to run that update. It can take as little as 30 minutes. For me, it's usually taken a few hours. So if you're in a rush to use these as hearing aids, I'm sorry, you're probably gonna have to wait a little while, especially if you need to run the iOS update and the firmware update. Of course, the only way to confirm that this update has actually run is when you see hearing protection, hearing assistance, and take a hearing test. Okay, so once we have everything updated and paired, we need to go through the physical setup process. I cannot stress enough how important it is to get a good physical fit of the AirPods Pro 3 if you want to receive the full amount of benefit from the hearing aid feature. So these guys come pre-installed with the size medium rubber ear tips. They happen to fit my ears really well, but you may have smaller ears or bigger ear canals than I do, and then you're gonna wanna break out the 4 other options that they have. So they have extra, extra small, small, and large. Of course, the medium is the one that comes pre-installed like I just mentioned. Changing these ear tips is a little bit of a pain, not too bad, but the way that I recommend is that you kind of flap over the dome like that, and then you just pull straight off because it kind of snaps off and snaps back on when you change them out. Now, I'm not gonna take one of the smaller ones because the mediums are the perfect size for me, and how you basically reattach them is you, like I said, you just snap it back on with the proper orientation. There you go, ready to fit inside of your ears. These actually have a little bit different of a shape than the AirPods Pro 2. I actually like the way that these fit better. I feel like I can get them further into my ear canals, which ensures a better fit. But nevertheless, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of wiggle these in. This is roughly what it should look like when you have them in your ears. Now, you may think that you have a good fit of these with the ear tips that you've selected, but you might not have a good acoustic fit. But Apple has thought of that. I'm gonna show you how here in just a second. The next thing that we need to do though is take an actual hearing test. So you can see in blue here, we have take a hearing test. I'm gonna tap on that and it's gonna take us through this entire process. I'm gonna go ahead and click on get started here. And it has a few questions for me. First and foremost, it wants to know if I'm 18 years or older. Of course I am. Am I currently experiencing allergies, a cold or infection in your ears or sinuses? This could give you a conductive hearing loss, which they are not capable of testing for. So if you are experiencing one of those things, you're gonna wanna click on yes. If you're not, you click on no. And then the last question that it has for me is, have I been in a loud environment like a concert or construction site in the last 24 hours? Because you could be going through a temporary threshold shift. I, of course, have not. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on no, and then I can click on next. All right, so right now it's actually looking to see if the noise levels in my environment is too much or if it's quiet enough to actually run the hearing test. You can see as I'm talking here that it says that there is too much noise, so I'm gonna shut up here for a second. All right, so it wants to make sure that I actually have the AirPods inside of the correct ears. Clearly I do here, so we're good to go ahead and click on next. The position is correct and it's a snug fit, so I can click on next. And this is where it's going to check and see if I do actually have a good fit and that I've selected the proper ear tip. So I'm gonna click on start the check. You're gonna hear some music when you do this, and it's gonna see how much of that sound is leaking out and recycling through the microphones on the external portion of the AirPods Pro 3. So here we go. And there we go, we can see that the fit is okay. However, if I were to break the seal on one of these, so my left ear, I'm gonna hit back and I'm going to run it again and we'll see what happens. Start the check. And you can see here that the left earpiece needs adjustment. So I'm gonna push him back in, or in this case, if I don't have the right ear tip, I have to change the ear tip to get a better seal. And then I'm going to run the check, fit, and noise again. And there we go, we are okay to move on with the hearing test. So let's go ahead and click on next here. And it's gonna go ahead and set up do not disturb for the hearing test, so different notifications don't bother the testing. And basically they're telling me that they're going to be playing tones at different frequencies and intensities and to tap my screen when I hear them. You can play a sample of this if you want to. I'm just gonna go ahead and click on next. And we're gonna go ahead and hit start test. Now, if I start talking during this, you'll notice that it will give a warning saying that there's too much noise in the environment. It pauses the test. Once that noise goes away, you can resume the test. All right, left ear's done. Let's go to the right ear. All right, test is complete here. Let's go ahead and show the results. You can see here at the top it says that I have little to no loss in the left ear and the right ear. The hearing is a bit better in the left ear at 9 dB HL and in the right ear at 23 dB HL. Essentially, the lower the number, the better. This is the pure tone average at 500, 1000, 2000, and 4000 Hertz. If you want to see this in greater detail, you just click on Show Details, and you can see there that's my pretty significant asymmetry between my ears. You can see that I have that really nasty cookie bite hearing loss in my right ear, and it looks like the high frequencies are sloping off here in my left ear as well. Just as a quick little side note here, if you do notice a pretty significant asymmetry like I have, you want to make sure that you go see an audiologist so they can test your hearing and get you referred to a medical doctor if they see a significant asymmetry as well, because that could be a sign that you have a tumor growing in your worst ear. Okay, so once you have the hearing test done, it's going to actually create amplification for you in the frequency ranges that you need a boost in. So I'm going to go ahead and click out X on this, and then we can see here that we can turn on Media Assist or click on Done. If you turn on Media Assist, it's going to apply the amplification settings from the hearing test into any media that you're streaming into the AirPods Pro 3. Personally, I like that, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn on Media Assist. So you can see there, Media Assist is on, but we still need to set up the hearing aid. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on Set Up Hearing Aid. We're gonna click on Get Started. We're gonna click on Next, and then we're gonna actually turn on the hearing aid here. So I'm gonna click on Turn on Hearing Aid. I can hear that everything just changed in the way that I'm hearing things. It's also giving us a tip here that we can make adjustments inside of the control center. I'll show you how to do that as well, but we're gonna click on Done. And you can see that now we are back inside of the AirPods Pro 3 settings screen, and you can see that we're in transparency mode. If I were to click over into noise cancellation, this essentially blocks everything out. So the hearing aid feature is not really working right now. I need to either be over in the transparency mode or click into the adaptive mode. In case you're unaware, the adaptive mode kind of blends transparency mode, but if it starts getting really noisy, it'll switch you into more noise cancellation. Now, under hearing assistance, you can see here that it says hearing aid and media assist are on. Before we set everything up, it said off. But here's the thing. You may not actually want to take a hearing test inside of the app. You may want to upload your own hearing test, or you may actually want to go in and modify your threshold results to make them more accurate based on testing that you've had in the past. So let me go ahead and show you how to actually do that. For this, we want to click on Hearing Assistance, and then you want to go down to Update Hearing Test Results. So once we click on Update Hearing Test Results, we can upload any previous results that we may have had. I mean, you can see I've been reviewing this hearing aid-like feature since June 25th of 2020. I could technically take any of these audiograms and upload that, and it would create a new configuration of amplification for me. But just to show you what you can do, I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom here, and it says Add Hearing Test Results. So I'm gonna click on that, and it's gonna ask me how I want to add that hearing test result. I can click on Scan with Camera, so if I have my audiogram in front of me from a hearing care professional, or I'm at their office and they have my audiogram up on their computer screen, I can click on Scan with Camera, and it's going to recognize those thresholds and pull them in to the iPhone. When you do that, usually it makes some mistakes, so you have to go in and clean it up a little bit. Or you can add your audiogram manually. For that, we just click on Add Manually, and we can add it from photos if you have a picture of your audiogram. You can add it from files if you had audiograms sent to you in PDF format. Or you can click on Enter Your Results manually. If you are going to add your audiogram results from photos or from your files, you have to have those inside of your phone. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to enter results manually. And it's asking what type of symbols appear on my chart. So I'm going to go ahead and put cross. I'm going to click on circle. I do need to click on square because masking would have been performed during a professional audiogram from me, and I'm not going to click on triangle because no masking had to be performed in the left ear. So I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. It's going to ask which frequencies my audiologist actually tested me at, so I'm going to click on 250, 500, 1K, 1.5, 2, 3, 4, and 6, and 8. Then I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. And now it wants me to actually add in the values for each of these by clicking the plus or minus button. So you can see that this will actually take quite a while for you to do. This is for 250 hertz. I'm going to click on continue. Then we're going to go ahead and basically do for 500 hertz. And it's going to take you all the way across the audiogram. So you need to make sure that you have your audiogram in front of you when you're entering these thresholds. And this is also one of the ways that you can augment your audio as well. It's almost like an equalizer to where you can get more amplification in certain frequency ranges if you basically fake a hearing loss in those frequency ranges. All right, so give me a minute so I can go ahead and enter a manual one here. All right, there we go. So this is a pretty typical hearing loss that we may see for someone who might receive some benefit from AirPods Pro 3 as hearing aids. I'm gonna basically check my work. I can add or remove a frequency here. I can modify them by tapping on them, and I can change the test date here. Of course, I'm entering this in today, so I'm just gonna leave that. I'm gonna click on done once I've completed it, and that goes in as an option for me to select here. You can see manually entered audiogram here on the screen. Now, I'm not actually going to use that one there. I'm gonna make sure that we're using this one that actually represents the hearing loss that I have. Click on next. I am going to turn on media assist. I'm going to set up hearing aid. I'm going to click on get started, next, and turn on hearing aid. You have to do this each time that you switch to a different audiogram. So we're going to click on done. And then I'm going to go back to the original settings screen. You can see here that we still have hearing aid and media assist are on. All right, so a couple other things that I want to show you inside of this tutorial are that you can actually switch between this hearing aid feature in transparency mode and adaptive mode and noise cancellation mode. So if I scroll down here, there are different options that we have for the press and hold of the AirPods. So if I press and hold here, it will switch me into a different mode. If I press and hold again, it'll switch me back into a mode depending on how I have it set up. So I'm going to click on my left ear here. Right now it's set up to listening mode, so it will change my listening modes when I press and hold. If I wanted to activate Siri, I would switch over to Siri. I'm not a big fan of Siri, you can do that if you want to. And then you can see which listening modes it would actually switch between. So if I wanted to switch between transparency, which is like the hearing aid feature, and noise cancellation, I would just have those two checked. But if I also wanted it to cycle through adaptive, I would have that checked as well. Now when I press and hold, it's going to cycle from transparency to adaptive. Then if I press and hold again, it'll go from adaptive to noise cancellation. If I press and hold again, it will go back to transparency, and they all have their own tones that you hear when they get switched into. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and leave all of those checked because I like being able to cycle through those. I'm going to hit the back button. You do actually have call controls here as well, so if you want to answer phone calls when they come in, you're going to click it once. If you want to mute and unmute, you want to press once. If you want to end a call, you want to click it twice. For the hearing aid portion of this tutorial, I'm not going to go any further inside of this, but what I do want to show you is how you can modify the audio inside of the hearing assistance area. So you see here that we have the hearing aid feature active, but if I click on adjustments here, you can see that I can actually adjust the amount of amplification that I'm receiving. So that's getting pretty loud right there. That right there, pretty soft. Middle is where the baseline is for you. If you want to swipe to control amplification, if we turn that on, now when we actually swipe up with our fingers on our devices, it's going to increase the amount of amplification we get. If we swipe down, it decreases the amount of amplification that we're going to get. So if you like that feature, go ahead and turn that on. From a balance perspective, if we feel like we need a little bit more amplification on one side versus the other, we can do that. I'll cover what you might want to do that for in my hearing aid review video. Under that, we have tone. If you drag it over to brighter, it gives you more high frequency and tapers off the low frequency. Conversely, if you go over to darker, it boosts up the low frequencies and takes off the highs. I prefer to have that closer to the middle. Below that, we have ambient noise reduction. So we can actually have more ambient noise reduction for like steady state noise in your environment. I have a little fan running in here. So when I do that, it takes away that static noise of the fan, but it also mutes the sound a little bit more as I'm talking. If I take it over to less, it brings out more of the room sounds that I have around me. And if you're in a really noisy environment, that might actually be a bad thing to have ambient noise reduction on less. So I'm just going to turn that back to middle. If you click on conversation boost, that is what boosts sounds that are coming from in front of you more than sounds that are coming from behind you. It basically utilizes directional microphone technology for that. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for now. now. And now they also have own voice amplification. So if you feel like your voice is too loud when you're talking because your voice is being picked up by the AirPods, you can drag this over to less. If you feel like you're not getting enough of your voice and you can't tell how loud you're being, you can drag this over to more. For me, that actually sounds a little bit more normal. I like having that higher. If you mess all these things up and you're like, shoot, I don't know what I did, I want to go back to the way that I started, you just click on Reset All Tunings, takes you back to the baseline. Now, this is not the only place that you can adjust these settings. You can actually do this without having to go all the way into all of these settings screens here by simply triple clicking the side button here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3, brings up this screen right here, and you see that we have the AirPods Pro 3 here at the top. We have the hearing assistance button here. We have background sounds, and we have live listen. Let me just go ahead and show you live listen really quick. So when you click on live listen, what that does is it actually picks up sound through the microphone of your phone or tablet. So now you can set this phone closer to the person you want to hear. It will pick up their voice and stream it into your AirPods Pro 3. Now I've got to turn this thing off because I'm getting a horrible echo of my own voice getting picked up by that. All right, so now that we have the live listen turned off, I'm gonna go into hearing assistance here. And this is where you'll be able to see where we have the media assist on. We have media assist active for calls and FaceTime, music and video, and the hearing aid. And below that, you can see that we have all of the different adjustment settings that we had inside of the actual settings of the phone, but a much easier way to access them here by triple clicking the side button. That being said, you also don't even have to click that side button 3 times. If you want an even easier way to do that, all you do is you drag down from the top corner of your phone, you click on the little ear icon here, tap onto that, and it takes you into the exact same screen. And the last thing that I'll go ahead and show you is this background sounds option. So if you click onto background sounds, so if you're someone who has tinnitus and you're trying to drown out the sound of that ringing and buzzing inside of your ears, you can actually turn on one of these different masking sounds, which can sometimes help drown out the sound of the tinnitus so you can focus on other things. I tend to use this a lot when I'm working on my videos because I don't want outside sounds distracting me. That being said, this might not be your cup of tea, and if it's not, don't use it. And there you go. There's your detailed tutorial on how to set up the AirPods Pro 3 as hearing aids. That being said, like I mentioned before, if you want my detailed review video of how these actually function as over-the-counter hearing aids, I do have that video linked in the description for you.